Hello, it's Ashley here. I'm 27 years old and a proud baby mama. The last 3 years of my life have been nothing short of a roller coaster. I fell in love, got married, and inherited a house from my father. It has been a cycle of loss and love. It all started when I was seeing John. He was the most charming man in the entire office and welcomed me to work quite wholesomely when I first joined. We clicked almost instantly. He'd sit at the cubicle next to mine and write jokes in Post-it notes and stick them to my computer screen whenever I moved away from it. He was the funniest man I ever met. He soon proposed to me after dating for a few months, and I accepted. I always wanted to be a bride. Around the same time, though, I ended up losing my father to a sudden cardiac arrest. I and he were always very close. As I grieved, my mother told me about an old house that he left me in his will. She asked me to go check it out and see if I could sell it because that house cannot be lived in for long. It's too old. A month later, when I was feeling better, John and I went over to check the house out. Ma was right about it. It was very old, decrepit, and creaky. I could see some woodwork rotting and an old smell that was all over the place.
Oh boy, I won't be surprised if we just casually find Dracula sleeping in his coffin here.
Really? That's a reach. There's no Dracula here. Just needs some fixing and she'll be as good as new.
That's what they said about my grandma.
Stop it. We've to focus. Stop making me laugh. The day was spent looking things over. There were a lot of problems in the house and it was impossible to live in. So I decided to fix it and sell it. Soon we started planning for our wedding, and I also started some patchwork on the house. Around the same time, my visits to John's parents became more frequent. I had met Kayla and Roger before, but this was really the first time I was getting to know them. To me, their lifestyle always seemed a bit too over the top. This one time we went there for lunch and found out, oh, that trip to Barbados was just so good. I can't seem to get it out of my head.
You guys went to Barbados? But I thought you went to Italy 8 months ago. We did! And a week ago we went to Barbados on a mini-plane. It was so much fun, Johnny boy. You should have been there.
Roger and Kayla were serving us lunch as they talked about their extravagant trips. I was bemused by everything they were saying, but John had a concerned look on his face.
Dad, you can't possibly keep doing this. I can already sense your pension fund going drier than California. Oh, don't you worry about the money, John. We'll be fine.
And we always have you two to rely on, don't we? We wouldn't consider ourselves very reliable right now, Roger. I laughed awkwardly. Surely he was joking. We barely had a place. John lived in his apartment, and I only had my mom's place and the old beat-up house to call home. I've been saving to buy a place for years now, but the economy makes it a bit difficult at my pay range. I just hope that I can sell the house for a profit once I fix it.
Just relax, you kids. No one's gonna go broke so suddenly. We'll be fine. Now eat up. The chicken will get cold if you don't eat it quickly.
That day, lunch was great. We all laughed with Roger and Kayla. Roger seemed like he took his life easily, and so did Kayla. They didn't seem to care about how some things they did were just way too expensive. Like a few months ago, they got themselves a second TV, just because they felt like it. I couldn't understand them. Kayla and I got along okay-ish at the time. We'd help each other with the food, and she'd give her opinions about the wedding. I think that you kids need a massive wedding. Rent a big venue and invite all your friends and guests. We could have expensive drinks and fun ceremonies. That's a great idea, Kayla, but I don't think we can afford a wedding so grand. Plus, I don't have a lot of relatives. Just a few direct uncles. I don't think we need a very big venue.
Oh, don't think like poor people. Think big. As big as you can.
You know, my dad always taught me on how only big things gain the attention they need. And he was right. Roger and I fell in love when we realized that we both enjoyed living big. It's more than just a hobby. It's a way of life. I didn't enjoy how Kayla basically called me poor. And it was very disrespectful to just about everyone. Not everyone is born with millions of dollars in the bank. And I find that fascinating, but it's not for everyone. We have other expenses. I have other expenses to take care of with all the money. So a small, cute little chapel would be just perfect for the wedding.
Other expenses? Like what?
Oh, well, you see, as you know, my dad passed away recently. He left me this very old house they used to live in. It's been in the family for a long time. I'm just fixing up the place to sell it.
Oh, and make a lot of money off of it, huh? I like where you're going with this. Why live in an old house when you can have a new one? Perfect!
It's not that. I mean, I'm not sure yet. We might end up living in it if we feel like it. We'll just have to wait and watch.
Oh, again with the small thought. What's wrong with you? Come on, sell it and buy a big house. You've got to show people how rich you are.
But I'm not that rich, Kayla. I don't need to spend like there's no tomorrow because I know that there is.
Oh, God. Fine. Do as you like. Don't come crying to me when you see your friends living better off than you.
She said that with such disdain in her voice that I felt like leaving the house right then. But somehow I held it back. I was starting to understand why John looked so concerned whenever they were around. These two have a very twisted way of looking at the world of the rich and the poor. It was as if there was no in-between for them. Things like this kept happening. One time, Roger came into the backyard boasting about something new he'd bought.
You bought what? A Porsche! From a friend. You'll love this car when it arrives. But you already have a car. And one more won't hurt. I can't believe this.
John was very upset and just stormed out of there. We only got to talk about it as we were driving home. You look tense, honey. What's on your head?
What? Oh, it's nothing. It's just... I don't know.
Come on, you can tell me. You know that.
It's my dad. He's spending way too much. He spent so much money in the past year, I can't keep calm about it. The trips and now this? It's not cheap, you know. He's trying to live like some retired NFL superstar.
Yeah, they do seem a little over the top to me. I thought you must be used to it.
It's caused problems before, honey. I've been in and out of different schools because they spend too much on unnecessary things that we'd have to sell the house and move to a cheaper one. These kids at one of my schools called me Jumper John because I moved around too much. It doesn't help the trauma, I tell you.
Oh, God. Do you think that'll happen again?
Well, I don't think those kids will call me Jumper John now. Why? Do you think there's a chance?
John, be serious.
Fine. Look, Mom and Dad are too much for themselves, and they never realized it. I'm scared for them.
It'll be okay, honey, won't it? John shook his head and held my hand in his.
It better be.
That day, we made arrangements for the wedding. Later, I went back to the old house to see how things were going in there. It had been a few months, and I intended to get the woodwork and plumbing done first. Both of them were taking their time, and I wasn't sure how long it was going to take just to get renovated. When I got there, Marcel, my renovation manager, met with me.
I'm going to be honest, it's not looking good.
What do you mean?
It's just too old. The floorboards are infested with termites. Half the basement was flooded when the workers got in, and the plumbing is very rusted. We might have to replace it entirely. I think even after all the fixes, you might need maintenance every other month because the land under the house is just terrible now.
Oh, God. That's going to take a lot of money, isn't it?
You bet. We also have to replace most of the floorboards with new ones, unless, of course, you're okay with falling through the floor of the basement.
Very funny, Marcel. Fine. Just keep working on it, please. We'll take care of the bills. Just send me your cost estimates by tonight, please.
Will do.
While Marcel and the crew were hard at work at the old home, Kayla and Roger became more and more indulged, buying clothes and expensive gifts for the guests they invited informally to the wedding. Meanwhile, I and John only had a few of our close friends and cousins coming over. The guest list went up to 80 people, and most of them were Kayla and Roger's friends. I don't know what to do with them anymore, but John and I let them have their way. As it turns out, soon enough, they would start losing their minds. The wedding went through. It was a great success. Everything went according to plan, and while Roger and Kayla tried stealing the show whenever possible, we were still the center of attention. Our wedding rings were perfect, too. They weren't studded with dozens of diamonds like Kayla and Roger wanted them to be, but they were perfect for us. A few months passed and their home started looking a bit less shiny. I don't know why, but they suddenly moved the new Porsche from the driveway to the garage. It was surprising that they were suddenly not showing it off. John would deliver unsettling news to me very soon. They're in a mess right now. God, I knew this would happen. What kind of mess? John took a deep breath before answering that question, as if he had to soak in whatever was happening before he could say it out loud. They've run dry. All the spending has doomed them. I heard Mom crying in the room the other day because Dad had to sell the car. Wait, the new car? He sold it? I thought they just put it in the garage. Yeah, he sold it. They're still down under. I don't know. I warned them. Now they might try to rely on us. You have to decline and be strong, okay? My parents can be a real pain when they run out of money. Don't worry. They can't ask much of us. What's the worst that could happen? I would get an unfortunate answer to my question a few months later. By now, I was already pregnant. John and I were over the moon knowing we were welcoming our baby that year. But when we delivered the news to Kayla and Roger, they didn't seem too happy about it. A baby? Right now? Oh, I think you're too young to have one, dear. Kayla, I'm about to be 27.
But what about the house? We can't have all of us living under the same roof with a baby. They're so loud.
What? Of course we can't. The baby won't be living here. I and John would probably live in the old house for a while, you know?
No, that's not what I meant.
Roger, shut up. Don't talk about all that right now.
What's going on with the two of you?
It's nothing, dear. We're just a bit stressed out. I think you two should really think of this baby thing over. I mean, it's gonna be a liability. I'll have you know I'm very capable of taking care of a baby. My child is not a liability, Kayla. Well, not to you, of course. What is that supposed to mean? I never liked the way Kayla talked to me. Whether it was about my wedding, or my house, or my child, she always had the snarky and mean way of voicing things that made me feel angry.
Look, me and Kayla are going through a rough patch right now, and we'd really appreciate it if you'd share the old house with us. You know, until we get rid of this house.
Get rid of it? Weren't you still paying the mortgage on it?
Yeah. But we can sell it and transfer the mortgage and still make a profit. Then we'll be out of your hair in a jiffy, I promise. In fact, we'll be out of your house by the time your baby's here.
Well, I was hoping we'd get a chance to talk about this more, Roger dear, but fine. Yes, please, Ashley. Won't you help your poor mother-in-law out? I thought you hated being poor.
We're not poor.
Kayla suddenly screamed at the top of her voice.
Don't you ever call us poor, girl! You don't know who you're dealing with!
Mom, what is wrong with you?
What's wrong with me? What's wrong with you? Getting married and living in a creaky old house with some cheapskates? Oh, I and your dad are going through things right now. Otherwise, we'd not even have her step foot in our paradise.
I was so shaking at her sudden change in demeanor. I think calling her poor finally made her tick. I was pissed at her for speaking at me with such a manner. Fine. If you don't want me, I'll leave. Good luck getting any support from me when you need it. I stomped out of there like I was never going to come back. In the background, I heard John furiously argue with his parents over everything that was said. By the time I sat down in the car, he joined my side. Babe, I don't know what to say. I'm so sorry. Just drive, John. I don't want to talk about this. We drove back to his apartment and I had a heartfelt crying session. It's a weird thing that tears start rolling down my eyes even when I get very angry. John comforted me like he always has and we went to bed, skipped dinner that day. After all of that, I no longer felt hungry. The next morning, John received a call from his parents before I woke up. They said they were really sorry about the argument. They want to talk to you in person. They're really watering it down and calling it an argument? Yeah, that was a fight if I ever saw one. All I needed was a referee and a checkered shirt to do the countdown. God, I can't believe this. What do you think we should do? The final call is yours. Right. Oh, wait. I have to go back there and check things out with Marcel. That house is messy to deal with. We'll talk about this later. I've got to go. We quickly left the apartment. I was on maternity leave from work, so John was the only one going to work. Driving to the place, the thoughts of the fight and the letter kept bothering me. Everyone has bad days, but does this mean I should forgive Kayla so easily? I mean, the letter didn't even feel genuine. I wondered if she'd have bothered to apologize if the two of them weren't in so much trouble. I reached the house and Marcel was standing outside looking over things. He yelled at a couple of his workers slacking off and then noticed me walking towards him. "I'm sorry about that. They get a little lazy sometimes." "It's all right, as long as they're getting things done, right? How's it looking, Marcel?" "Bigger issues have been fixed. I'm sure you'll appreciate the new paint job. The plumbing is still messy, but we should have it under control by next week. But there is one big problem, though." "What now?" "There is asbestos deposit under the basement. We fixed the plumbing, but I won't let my workers go inside. We've sealed the door off. I suggest you not go in there either." "Seriously? What? How is there asbestos in there?" "It's an old house. Things like this can happen. Asbestos is poisonous, but if you stay out of the basement, you should be fine. We did a thorough check and the rest of the house. Later, the good news is everything else is clean." "I'm pregnant, Marcel. I can't have my baby around any poisonous things." "And you won't. Like I said, it's only the basement that's a problem. You can decide to flood it with cement or keep it sealed for good. The second option is cheaper." "Oh, God. Fine. Anything else I should be worried about?" "Nope. Give me a week and you can move in. We'll run pest control in that little time, too." The conversation ended and I booked it out of there. I was still scared about things Marcel mentioned, but he's an expert. If he said everything else was clean, I should be fine. Maybe eventually I'll sell the house. I had no intention of living there. Things moved ever onward. I finally forgave Kayla and Roger for everything, and they moved into the house with us. They seemed like they had become more mature and wouldn't lash out at me, but the house is old. Its walls are thin, so I caught them talking one night.
What are we gonna do?
Relax. So we can't sell this old house without paying the loan off. We'll find a way to get out of this mess. Haven't we always?
I thought we could have transferred the loan. God, I almost had a heart attack when the loan agent said we couldn't. I can't believe this. We might have to sell the old car, too.
No more selling. Look, I'll figure it out, okay? Just relax and stop trying to sell our good things. My heart breaks every time I think about the beautiful Porsche you sold off like a piece of candy. So these two were in deeper trouble than they were letting on. Either way, it looked like I would need to keep my ears parked for them. I was 9 months pregnant then. Meanwhile, the house had been fully renovated. I paid Marcel a small advance fee, but most of it was still left. Me and John had decided to pay it off together and wanted to share ownership with him too. So we sat down in the living room with the papers ready to be signed one fine evening. John wasn't sure about it just yet. He said he'd be okay with paying for it without having ownership, but I wanted to share my life with him. I explained the terms to him, but he was just about to sign. Things spiraled out of control. I screamed loudly as I went into labor. I was getting the most horrid cramps of my entire life. It was finally happening.
Mom! Dad! Come downstairs! Ashley is going into labor!
John yelled at the top of his voice and Roger and Kayla came running down. There was no time. Roger acted fast and we jumped into his car. Kayla stayed back saying, "Don't worry. I've got some things to do. I'll join you soon." We didn't have time for her eccentricities and just rushed. I can't remember most of my journey to the hospital. I was in pain, and when I finally recovered, the room was filled with the cooing of a baby. Oh, and he was just the most perfect. Tiny hands, tiny feet, and the bluest of eyes. John and Roger, too, looked so happy. It was the happiest moment of my life.
What are you going to call him?
Jordan. I'll name him Jordan, after my dad. This is where things got complicated. When I went home a while later, Kayla had managed to redecorate the whole house. It was exactly the opposite of what I wanted it to be. The moment I settled down on the couch, she went to her feet and gave me a confident smile.
How do you like it?
I liked it better before, Kayla. Why didn't you come and see Jordan at the hospital? Oh, I thought you wouldn't want me to. Anyway, since you've been gone, I've got some things to do, so... She slid the property papers to me. She'd signed the parts where John was meant to. What was this woman up to? I'd say this is my house now. Don't worry, I found a buyer, and I'll sell it, and you can keep half the money. I promise. What? A buyer? What are you talking about? This is my house! Oh, come on. You and this poor little house. Let me sell it so you two can look a little better. Just sign this thing already. You'll never sell it with your skills. Let me do it. Mom, I swear. It's okay, John. She's right. I had a big smile on my face as I quickly signed off the documents. Here, congratulations. You get to keep the house. Ash, why? It's okay. At least you can let us stay here tonight, won't you, Kayla? Of course I will. But I'd say move out in the morning with the baby. The buyers would like to see the property. So we did. The next morning, John and I took Jordan to his place. John was still confused about why I did something that sounded so stupid, but I knew Kayla was about to sorely regret her decisions. The next day, she called us. You monster! Why didn't you tell me? Oh, I see you're enjoying selling the house, Kayla. Oh, by the way, you weren't going to share any money with me, were you? You needed it all to pay the loan on your old house, right? How could you possibly know that? You witch! I knew you were in trouble the first moment you walked in. There's asbestos in the basement? And you've not paid the guy for the renovations yet. What am I supposed to do? The buyers are furious. Oh, I don't know, Kayla. It's your house now. You can do whatever you like. Please, no, please take it back, please. Sorry, I can't hear you. Can you say that again? I said take back this house or... And I disconnected the phone. Jordan was sleeping in his cot, so I didn't start laughing loudly like I wanted to. I got rid of the house and Kayla. It's a win-win for me.